Welcome to Lunch Break, everybody.
Yeah, it's a great day. Hope you're having a great day.
As always, grab your drink, grab your snack.
That's the first energy drink I've seen in a while.
What's up with showing the energy drinks, but it's an energy drink day. It just is. It's the largest one you can get.
I don't know what your day is out there, but my week has been extremely challenging.
Yes.
A lot of experiences, a lot of opportunities to practice Christ-likeness. So hope you're having a great day out there. We're excited to be here today on lunch break. Justin's here, and we got Johnell Ward.
Hey.
So excited about having Johnell.
It's going to be an encouraging one, so like and share. Anyone that needs some motivation to chase some dreams and follow the Lord, and just overcome. Yeah. Like and share and let them know they need to tune in today.
So we're looking for 600 now, right?
Yes, we're looking for 600.
So
on the
you
page.
might be able to help us today.
Yes, if you're watching, if you're a regular watcher or not, you just tune in for the first time. We have a Facebook page for the Lunch Break podcast specifically.
Yes.
So like us, we're trying to get those followers up. So we appreciate all the support. You guys are amazing.
We're not too humble because the Bible says pride comes before the fall.
Yeah.
So we're humble enough to say, please help us out.
That's what we're looking for, because we're boasting in the Lord on the show. You guys already know.
Amen. So as we're here today, our question from last week, we had Pastor Ron and Pastor Josh here. And one of the coolest things is we're announcing a new web show.
Yes.
It's going to be released through Encourage Media Productions. That is part of our corporation. Want to thank them because Lunch Break is an Encourage Media Corporation production. We had our executive director, Vince Sierra, with us, and Josh Vietti was here, and he's a founder of Lunch Break.
Yes.
We want to thank our executive producer, Seth Parker, and our site producer, Mike Harvey, and our consultants, Tessa and Taylor Touchstone.
Yep.
Can't do it without them. That's why you got to give them a special shout out. These guys are making the magic happen right back here. They're making it happen and allowing us to come on the air. So our question today, which came from last week, announcing the new Encouraged Media production, God Stories, with Pastor Ron Vietti. I'm going to sit in as host. Pastor is our permanent guest. He's going to be sharing his God stories. Then we're going to have a commentator, two of them. And I can tell you, we've got a Superior Court judge. We've got a local attorney. We've got Nicole Dickey has a master's in theology. We have my wife, Tiffany Touchstone, who's a superintendent at Elk Hill School District.
Yes.
Then we have Steve Anderson, president of SC Anderson. We have James Burton.
James Burton.
He's a big business owner in town. So as we have all those people there, we're going to be examining and having some comments on Pastor Ron's God story. So it'll be a great show. You don't want to miss it. We start production next Tuesday.
Yeah, very exciting to see this show go down. It's going to be controversial, and it's going to be pretty exciting to watch.
We're hoping to drop that 1st of September, so keep looking for more announcements. But the question comes from that.
Yes.
So last week we talked about the new show, God Stories. Pastor Ron shared a God story on that show. And the question from our audience, and it comes in several different forms, Johnell, and their question this week is, are God stories hard to come by? And that's really kind of that was mentioned in several different fashions. Like, I don't even recognize when God's involved. I always say this, and this is just my personal thoughts. I think there aren't coincidences. I think when there's a coincidence, that's when God shows up anonymously. I think he comes and you just don't recognize it. So when we're trying to answer that question, I think you have to be expecting God to move to see and experience a God story. You got to be looking for it. And and some of those times happens in the times when your back is against the wall.
Yeah.
You just had one.
I can go in. Why
don't you jump in with yours this week?
I glorify God, and he told me I have to through this story. So
I love it.
I had a horrible story where my family van broke down. So we were at a point where we couldn't, all six of my family is a family of six, and we couldn't get to church if we tried. Like, we were in trouble. And we still owed on the van, to give you the backstory. So there's no way to really, I couldn't get a new vehicle. I couldn't replace it. It was way over my budget, way over my budget. And I was just moping around, and God really struck me and told me to stop moping by watching Pastor Ron's sermon. And his sermon last Sunday was about magnifying God.
So you hadn't watched it yet?
Hadn't watched it yet. I usually watch it on Monday, but I hadn't.
Yes, and I think our on-site producer, Seth Parker, was in all that.
Yeah,
too.
so me and Seth sit down for our first hour on Tuesday, which we would normally do this on a Monday, but we did it on Tuesday. I don't know why we were late this week, but it worked out perfect because I'm hearing that. He says most of us are magnifying our problems like a little ant. If you put it under a magnifying glass, it becomes big. And I'm just sitting here like, oh, he's speaking straight to my heart, because all I've done is tell people how bad my day has went and how I got to replace this van, and I'm panicking, like full panic. And then hearing his sermon, I go, okay, I'm going to start magnifying God. And I just finally made the shift in my mind to have some faith in Pastor Tom. I had reached out for him for some help too, and he said he was going to put a bug in Pastor's ear and see what could happen to help me. And I get the call later, I get the confirmation from Pastor Tom, like, hey, Pastor Ron said he's going to help you get your van fixed. And I'm breaking down. I can't believe it, because it was Pastor Ron's message that told me to change my attitude. And then
and you had no idea that was happening.
Yeah, had no idea. And then he follows through and just does an amazing act. But that's not where the God story for our family is. This part.
Isn't that true? Because I'm going to kind of go here, because I'm going to be hosting Pastor Ron's God story.
Yes.
So your back was against the wall.
Completely panicked.
Yes. Well, I know, because you never call me like that.
I usually figure it out.
You did. You kept calling, and I ghosted you.
Yeah.
Because I was in the meeting with Pastor Ron.
But
so
he did call me right back.
I called you right back.
Yeah.
And I said, Justin, what's going on? Because Justin doesn't usually call me that early. And Justin said, man, I'm just got my back against the wall. So we talked, and we prayed at that too.
Yes.
Yes, we prayed. So you had done what you needed to do.
Yes.
And then you and Seth decided to watch the message.
Yes.
Which changed your attitude.
Changed my attitude. And then get this. So in changing my attitude, the blessing comes, right? But I learned it's so much bigger than us, and that's why we have to change our attitude. Because my wife's father, who was a great man, who was trying to help us out this whole time, he's trying to put money together and figure out how he could help us. But it's over his budget too. It's a large amount to no family just is holding that ready to go. So he hears what Pastor Ron did, and I will quote him. He said, "That is crazy. That's what church is. That's family. That's more than a church. There's no place in town that I think that would have happened at." So he says when he works weekends, he says next weekend I'm open, which is in 2 weeks. He said he will be at church. So, and we've been trying to get him to church for a minute.
Oh, wow.
And that gesture is what took him that next level. Said, hey, there's something to this. Let me check it out. And no matter what comes from that, it's a blessing that the way we were blessed touched his heart, made him want to come to church. It was way bigger than us. And what God told me, the small thing that God told me was that I thought I needed finances or I needed a new vehicle. But what you really needed was an attitude adjustment.
Yes.
He had the rest handled.
Yeah.
And it turned my horrible week into just the best week ever. It was crazy.
He was doing something bigger, wasn't he?
Yes.
And you can't see that, because he was also going to touch your father-in-law's life also.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we can't just look at our problems, because it was bigger than my problems.
If you're out there and things aren't working out, and you're looking for a God story, sometimes they're going to come in the most normal ways. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to reach out, and after you exhaust your mind and your mental state, you got to reach out to people that
and the key is, it is humility, because the reason I don't call you often when I'm in a pickle, because I'm like, I want to be able to handle this.
Yes.
Man, I got to take care of my own family.
Yeah.
I got to do this. You know what I mean? But then there's times that just humble you. Go, I got to reach out for help, and I just got to suck it up.
Yes.
And that's when God shows up the most.
It's just one thing, because then God put something on my heart.
Yeah.
Then God put something on Pastor Ron's heart.
Yeah.
Then the ball starts rolling. So if you're out there, sometimes it isn't going out looking for a God story, and I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do either, but sometimes it's just realizing God wants to be there for you during all your trials, all your efforts, all those things.
That's where he shows up. When Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor," it's when we're at those low points. And if we look for God in our low point, He will show up. But if we choose to turn our heads to Him, you won't see Him. He's there.
And these are ones that we're going to share. So something happened in my wife and in my life that was pretty amazing, because we were back in Tennessee, Nashville, visiting my daughter. And we were back there, and our purpose was to go vacation and visit my daughter. But I was out there looking for God. I was, and I had remember staying up one night, and I was praying about what God was doing. I'm on vacation, and God's waking me up. I don't know if you've ever been in that moment. God, I'm on vacation, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go to sleep, 'cause but I'm thinking about other things.
Yeah.
But God's always involved. So I started writing scripture down, and I had prayed, God, we need an anchor. Tiffany and I need an anchor, and it's almost like for our family too, because my daughter was living in Nashville, so we almost thought it was a natural move that we would end up in Nashville in the next couple years, but it didn't have peace. So as we were finding peace, my wife got a phone call from her superintendent at the time, and as my wife got this phone call, I could feel things were going. So I made her read the verses. She was like, I'm talking to my boss. I go, read these verses. And so she read the verses. I had circled some things, and my wife sat there, and when it came to the time when her boss talked to her and said, hey, are you ready to hear this? She says, yes, and I want to do it. So she kind of jumped out there, and what happened was her superintendent had been offered the assistant superintendent job in San Bernardino. And he said, I've already talked to the board, and they want you to take my job. And actually, it's kind of like we need to make this happen.
Yeah.
So my wife goes, I'm in. So there again, my wife has been a second grade teacher for the last 6 years, but she's been a principal before. And so as she went through there and did that, it was an answer to my prayer. It was a God moment, because I couldn't have worked that out.
Yeah.
Him taking another job, because when we went on vacation, that wasn't planned. My wife feeling that she moved in there, she's got all the credentials to do it, and she had just finished one of them like 6 months before to take this job. So now my wife is the superintendent of Elk Hills School District, and we're not looking at going to Tennessee
as soon as
we thought.
Yeah.
But that was a God moment for us.
Yeah, that's God being in control.
It is, because I was up and I was trying to figure it out like you were, and God's like, time out. I got a phone call coming in the morning, but we're out there and we're giving it.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I usually tell my kids to expect God. Like, we should be able to see God daily. And it's piggybacking off of hearing Pastor Ron speak, like, you should be having these, like, God stories daily, right? And that always stuck in my head, like, what does that mean? So, like, the identifying part is, like, the attitude, having the right attitude and not taking away from the God in the trial and being nonchalant, like, oh, it just worked itself out. No, it didn't. Like, my back was against the wall. Like you said, this week has been very challenging, right? And then acknowledging, like, it all works itself out, but because of God. Like, there's nothing that I do that can make some of these problems, like, go away.
Or solve themselves.
Yes.
There's too many angles it's coming from.
And being in ministry, you run into it so often, because I know me and Johnell, we get to see the behind the scenes, and we're going to get into Kicks for Kids. It's going to be a big part of today's show. But in giving away the shoes to kids, like, we get money donated, and every cent gets spent on shoes and helping kids. So it's like to the penny. And it was funny because we're just wrapping shoes at the house, finishing up the shoes, and then one of our guys hands me $200, right, and says, hey, we want to give this to the ministry and find out, hopefully you guys can use it this or that. I immediately call Johnell and go, hey, I got this $200 donation. And he goes, it's perfect. We haven't paid the balloon lady. It's $200. And it's like right on like that. Didn't even know we needed it, but we clearly needed it. And God was like, here you go. And you just see the timing when it's time like that. It's not coincidence, like you said. God shows up.
What does it say? Acknowledge God in all the things that you do.
Yes.
Acknowledge God.
You got to give him his credit. And there's something, I do have to ask you our question. We have a question that we asked. It's what's new. You guys are hearing the sound effect, the beautiful sound effect. Thank you, Mike, and Seth for making it. But something that people may not know about you. A lot of people know you love outreach. A lot of people, some know that you were foster youth and things like that. But I want something that the people don't know about Johnell Ward.
This might come off as a shocker, but a lot of people don't know that I read, like, extremely a lot.
Yes. Like, see, you can bring up subjects to Johnell, and he will start quoting people. And you're like, what? And I'm gonna say it because me and him are close. Me and him are literally brothers, like literally brothers. So I've heard Johnell talk. His vocabulary is not the highest.
No.
And it's part of his upbringing, but you can never take that away from his intelligence.
Yes.
The man
Two different things.
He's one of the smartest men that I know. And I'm talking about, you can talk about mechanical things. You can talk about physical labor things. You can talk about theology. You can go into history. And this dude has a book to tell you about it. I'm like, what? You're doing all this reading? This is crazy.
Doesn't that go to show, Johnell, that it doesn't matter what your abilities are?
God can use you.
Yes. And you can still be all that you want to be.
Yes.
Yeah, you still can be fun and dorky, and people get the misconception that fun and dorky, like you're not competent, right? And it's funny when I do start opening up and speaking into like an intelligent conversation, and like you can see the people just get big, right? Because
it's a ministry in itself.
People, we just got to say it, they judge.
You judge book by its color all the time.
I mean, you can't tell it me anymore, but when I was 260, people just thought I was a meathead.
Yeah.
They didn't realize I had a BS in computer science.
Yes, exactly.
They weren't giving me any credit for that. They just see a muscular guy and you're like, oh, there ain't nothing there.
Yes.
Nothing between the brains but muscles.
Spend all your time in the gym, not the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not true. That's why I always love people's story. And I think that's one of the things about Lunch Break. It's about people's stories.
Yes.
So let's jump into it with Johnell.
So much there.
You know, Johnell, do you want to tell the story of how you got saved?
Oh man.
You experienced it, but so many other people from our church heard it from the other side.
They heard it from the pulpit.
Do you want to tell them what happened on that side, and then tell us what was going through Johnell's head? Because you didn't know anything about it. You were just...
No,
you were judging them coming to you, right?
Yeah, I was judging completely, because we'll get into my history upbringing, but Valley Bible, never heard of the place. Drew by and thought it was literally like some type of factory,
like a
or
shoe factory.
Yeah, something, right? So they do. This was a few years back, and it was called Adopt a Block, and they come out. I think this was the very first one, but I guess I got told this story, and you guys have heard this probably from the pulpit from Pastor Ron, that they were up on the mountaintop praying over the ministry, and Ron gets a vision of a man at the time smoking cigarettes. I don't smoke no more, but right. But it gave him clear detail of exactly what I was wearing: black and white shoes, cargo pants, and a purple shirt. I'm not gonna say the other word. I see you looking, right? And that he'll be standoff, but that you guys need to get him because God wants this man. So when they see me,
that's the night before.
That's exactly the night before. So when they see me, three gentlemen, Pastor Al being included, like, were just like on me, like, oh, like, you're the guy. You're just the guy, right? And
you're like,
and they kept coming and knocking on the door, like, hey, no, like, you're this guy, like, we need. I'm like, you guys are a cult, bro. I'm not drinking it, whatever. And I was very disrespectful. I was like, whatever you want, I can probably get it cheaper. I was like, I'm not drinking your Kool-Aid, right? None of this stuff. But I was at the time in my life where I wanted to change, and it's not that I didn't believe in God. I just didn't think God wanted anything to do with me because of what I thought I was just beyond repair.
Your past,
right?
Things you're involved with. Yeah, I get that.
So when they came, I was like very hesitant because I've seen Christians and they usually just want to prance here's the gang member gave his life to Jesus, or you know what I mean? And then after the spark goes away, like just tossed to the side. I have seen this many times. So I'm like, no, you're not gonna, like, I'm not gonna go put myself through this. And once I got to a point, like, I was just tired of being tired, and Pastor Al told me this, and it clicked. He said, you tried every other way, why not try Jesus? Yeah. I said, and I told myself, I prayed that I haven't prayed ever in years. And I prayed, I was like, well, if you're really for me, you got 30 days. 30 days. Right? So I show up, because he knows I work with my hands, I'm really good, right? So I'm helping Easter set. someone older in the church who deals with law enforcement knew me, and he kind of warns you guys that this guy can be kind of dangerous, right? And it's
I think I was in on that meeting.
right? And then I get pulled away, and I'm like, okay, God, like this is it. Without 3 days, this is it. This is it. Like, oh, you're not for me. I guess I am unforgivable. I am unrepairable. Pastor Al was like, just come to this outreach. I'm like, why am I gonna come? They already got kicked out of church, bro. I didn't even do nothing. Right? I was like, I didn't even do nothing. Right? You know? So I go to this outreach. I'm mad the whole time I'm there. Some guy there is like intoxicated. And at this time, I didn't know that he was actually involved with the woman, but he tries to run off with the kid. Security's there. Nothing. There's not a pun at the security, but they weren't there quick enough. So I took it upon myself. I grabbed the kid, and my frustration was let out on that guy. So I embodied every fear that this person just told you guys, like, hey, yeah, this guy can be dangerous, right? At that time, Tom Hollenbeck Sr., he said, no, we need you on security. I said, dude, they're not going to let me. Like, I just did everything they said they were scared of. I'm like the biggest liability. And long story short, I ended up, actually the next day was even powerful. So it goes from that vision to seeing Pastor Ron and Pastor Hector. I'm shadowing him Easter Sunday. He wants to talk to me. But then that lady, he starts praying over a lady whose son we had to call for a crisis unit breakdown. And I really thought this was really a cult then too, because I was scared to even come back. That they're praying over this lady, and they changed her, like, I don't know, they look like they changed. I'm like, oh, they believe in this wacko, right? And this lady's voice changed, and something came out of this woman, took off. I took off running because I was like, I can't beat that up. Like, I met my match, right? Yeah. And I remember Pastor Ron trying to call me and stuff. Like, he got what God was telling him. He was asking like, what God talked to you in this. And in the beginning, the first couple of days, I was like, to stay away from you guys. Like, this is a cult, like, right? But then realistically, it's like, this is what I was dealing with. I might not have been possessed, but I was being oppressed by the lifestyle that comes with it. It says our enemy is not of flesh and blood. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. And then it just, if I shouldn't fear that, because then all the Bible stories, because like he said, one of the major things I read is history, and all the Bible stories of like Gomorrah and Solomon, right?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
I was like, holy crap, wait a minute, 2 angels did all that? Right? You know, like I started getting like a real fear of the Lord. I'm like, oh, you know what? Like I'm a work through this. It didn't take away my problems too, because I was at the time, me and my wife were almost on the verge of divorce. We were separated for like 5 months at that time, right? Like it was over, right? And I was going through all type of stuff. I was just getting over. I was still on parole.
I know you were.
On parole, on our security. Same time.
It helped lead in security too. On parole. Right? It's crazy because it's like, I know they say sometimes it's like a process for salvation. But I tell people, like, it can also be as instant as that man on the cross, because I feel like when I really said yes that day, it's just been a roller coaster up. Yeah. Like I got story after story. Like I understand what Ron says, and you too. Yeah. When you guys say like you guys the God story, I was like, yeah, I have them. Yeah. I have them.
That one story that Johnell is referring to, we'll probably talk about on God Stories. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's a pretty trippy story. Yeah. And Johnell is a recipient and actually was a witness to this. Yeah. And when Pastor Ron and Hector were praying over this gal, and something happened. Yeah. You know, we don't have time on this show to talk about it. That's a whole other
story. You will hear it.
Yeah. So what I love about your story, Johnell, and as where you started, is how people now interact with you. You and I were at a meeting, and I got to meet a guy who recognized you, obviously, right off the bat. And he shook your hand, and you introduced him as your parole officer.
My last one, yeah.
Yeah, your last one of many. And so when Johnell went to the bathroom, Johnell goes, you know who that guy is? I go, yeah. And he goes, well, no, seriously, you know who he is? I go, no, I've been involved with Johnell for
some years.
Yeah. And I said, well, I recognize this. I go, we recognize who he was, but now he's accepted Christ. And he's like, no way. Not him. And I go, yeah. I told him about the ministry you're involved in. And he's like, that was probably one of the least likely persons that I had in my caseload that I ever thought things would work out for. And I go, wow. Well, they did. And I go, isn't it crazy? Because the Bible says that things are impossible with man, but all things are possible with God. And it was funny because you came back and I shared with you the experience.
Yeah. And no man can look at Johnell's story. He had every excuse not to make it and to be angry. He had every excuse when you see his upbringing. But God can see something in us that no man could ever see in us. So he's an anomaly, but he doesn't have to be an anomaly. Everyone out there can have the same story.
Hope. Tell us about the young Johnell.
Man.
Give us the Cliff Notes.
So, young Johnell, man, young Johnell was hurt. So I lost my parents at 6 years old. I'm a twin at that too. A lot of people don't know that probably. I have a twin brother. Praying for him. He's choosing a lifestyle that isn't for him. But we were separated. I come from it was 7 of us, but it's 10 siblings, but 7 of us had the same mother and father. My parents died when I was 6 to HIV. I remember some horrible things. I remember some good things about my parents. Mostly not too good though. I don't know what I would be even with them even here. For the longest, I was not given the choice in life to ever call anyone mother or father. That was weird to me. It was weird to me when I started having my 2 kids and I grew up in group homes and placements. I was in 17 different placements. You always feel like that incident you just said, like no one ever believed in you. So you never got those type of talks, like the pep talk that was like encouraging. You always got the pep talk of like, you know where you're going to end up with hell, you're the devils. And like, I got so tired of it. One time I told some people, like, I talked to the devil, he don't want me either. Just to make him mad, like, leave me alone, right? Yeah. But I grew up, I always had to protect myself. I played sports. No one was in the stands, right? Mm-hmm. And I was pretty good. But if I had that type of charisma, I probably would have took it a little bit further. Mm-hmm. But instead, I was like life was happening. I never had the opportunity to actually be a kid. Like I always had to make an adult choice. Mm-hmm. Being in group homes and stuff, they come in. If you're in Bakersfield, you go to Jameson Center, and they come like interview you. You can say, no, I don't want to go to that place. Like, what kid has that opportunity? Like, do you have your kids have an opportunity to tell them, like, oh, no, we're going to go here at 8 years old. No, we're going to this trip. I can say, no, I don't want to go.
Damn.
And they can't do nothing, you know? Like, or being exposed to, having to be told to, like, hey, sexual harassment, molestation, all these things, have this happened to you? No. Or it could happen to you here. Like, what do you mean? I'm 6 years old. I don't even understand sex, right? And being told these things, and here's the number to call. I'm like, dang, what is this? Right? And then actually growing up and seeing, like, I have seen what the worst people can do to youth. Experiencing myself. It's like not talked about with men. We hear a lot about women being attacked, but it's not talked about the young boys that are attacked. And I suffered from that. It took me a long time to even open up about that because it comes with complicating questions. I was attacked. No one believed me. I defended myself, and they almost sent me to YA prison, like for the duration of my youth, up to 25, until they caught the guy in the act with another youth. But the damage is already done. Like, I can't trust adults. I can't trust no one. Everyone that I came in contact with wanted something, including me. So if you couldn't give me what I needed, like, you were useless. So you become very manipulative. It's just, it sucks. Right? Lack of a better word. It just sucked. And then I got to the point where, like, you want the mom and dad, but you know that wasn't happening. So in foster care, and nothing, we need foster parents. we need them. Like there is a very big need, like genuine people who want to just love these kids, right?
And they're out there.
They are. But my experience is if you weren't the puppy, and I wasn't a puppy, I wasn't gonna get picked, right? So that unworthiness carried on to all the way. Even when I even said yes, I was like, I even told Jay too that I was like, "You sure Jesus forgives everything? Like everything? Like, dude, I ain't open about everything to him, but I was like, there's some things here,
Things that are in your head. Yeah.
like, are you sure, right?" And he's like, we talked around many conversations with you, right? And it like you do get forgiven, and I got shown that I was forgiven through talking, keeping my. Not going detailed in my testimony, but knowing that my testimony affected this family, and one of these family members were here, and he forgave me for something that should be unforgivable. And it was crazy because it could have went it could have went the other way.
Could have been bad.
It could have been really bad at church too.
Sometimes those are the most awkward encounters.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have those sometimes. Pastor Ron will come up and goes, "I know somebody who knew you," and I'm like,
Oh.
yeah, that's I wait for the next statement coming from it.
From what stage in life?
You know, one of the things that I love about being in the ministry and being around people, I remember when Johnell, you and I got teamed up. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And you had a idea and a vision.
Yeah.
Pastor Ron's like, Tom, can you get together with Johnell and just hear him out, see what he's doing? When you told me your vision, remember what I told you? I go, that's big.
Yeah.
I said that's big. But what else did I tell you? God's big.
Yeah.
God is big.
And I told you it's bigger than you.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes, you did.
And I just said, John, this is bigger than you. But man, if it's from God, He'll move through you. So tell us about Kicks for Kids. I knew it was something that was on your heart.
Yeah. So Kicks for Kids, it was a dream that I kept on having for a whole year that I didn't even tell no one. My wife knew about it because I was waking her up, and I was like, I'm not sure if this could be living the way we live, because I grew up foster care, group homes, gangs, all this, right? So it's all a lot of selfishness, and I didn't want this to be that. I was like, no, I'm gonna try, like you said, be humble, exalt God. So it was like, nah, this is. Plus, I got a sneaker fetish. There's no get around that one, right? So I was like, nah, this could be just self-serving. And when I was at a Bible study, and I said, I keep having this dream that I'm supposed to give kids shoes. And it's crazy that, God stories, right?
Not just shoes. Nice shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the key part.
That's the key part.
A lot of people don't even understand that at first.
Yeah, and so, that it's supposed to be. I said I would not give kids shoes that I wouldn't put on my own kids' feet.
Yeah.
Right? These have to be shoes that really,
Air Jordan.
Oh, Jordan 1, the retros.
Yeah. Don't get them started.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's amazing. But we met, and I was already scared, and then you said that, I'm like, oh, man. Right?
Well, I didn't want you to be let down.
Yeah.
But because it was so cool. People come to me all the time with ideas and hopes, and I shared it from the pulpit a few months ago. You got to be careful who you share your hopes and dreams with, because they can squash them. But what I loved about you, I think we were talking about who more perfect than you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's great because he only gives you a glimpse. Yeah. So me and Jay too, we're doing the first event, and we're thinking it's just shoes. Yeah. Right, and out of nowhere, it's like a couple of minutes before we're about to let them in, I get the idea, give every kid in here a pen, pencil, and paper. I just threw out the whole little speech I came up with and everything. Throw it out, give every kid a pencil and paper, and we told the kids to write down not what they're praying for. Right, because I didn't want some of them to revisit, because we had group homes in to revisit some pain, or write down what you want, the biggest dream, write it down. And at the time we were involved with some group, I was already involved with group homes, going in, just volunteering, just being there, acting like big brother, like a real one. And one of the kids that I was involved with, he wrote down his biggest dream was, I just want to be a good father. Yeah. And it hit me, because that's me.
That was his dream.
That was me. And I was like, I told him, back in tears too, and I'm not very like emotional
Yeah.
like that, right? You know, I'm like, dude, we're not doing enough, and that sparked the mentorship. And getting more involved. Where I got like the next part of it is learning how to walk alongside and uplift, even let them get past wherever my success is. Make sure that they go further, so because there's people watching them.
Yeah.
Like how much I tell a lot of the young guys, you know this too, because I'm around a lot of the college athletes and around town and stuff, that like you're responsible for your salvation, but you're also responsible for who comes behind you, right? Like there's people watching you
There are.
at all corners. Like integrity, right, isn't just what they see on the surface, is what they don't see in the dark. Like you gotta live a life where our approach shouldn't just be for pastors. It should be for everyone who says, I follow Jesus.
Yep.
I mean,
right.
Well, that's what I love about Kick for Kids, because you go out and you talk to the foster youth and you ask them, what is your most ideal pair of shoes, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And don't just stop with, you know, a little one. You want the shoe.
That's you.
Yeah.
And then you give the kids things to accomplish, right?
Incentives.
Because they have to be on, you know, you can get
Honor roll principles list.
honor roll and principles list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't just say, hey, I'm going to give you a pair of shoes.
No.
I want to give you a pair of shoes, but I also want to see some effort on
And the
your part.
testimony is we have kids that I always take it to they had D's and F's. We had kids that weren't going to school.
Going to school.
And then they come back showing Johnell, hey, I'm on principal's list. Hey, I'm on honor roll. And I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is way bigger than we ever thought this was going to be. It was mind blowing.
Just recently, this year, ministry can be like emotionally, can get you
It can be
drained, right?
taxing.
Yeah, right. So I got in that moment, but I know where to go. Like I might not be the most eloquent with my words, but I know I go to Jesus. I go to praying. So and I know my medicine. I know that I'm good at walking alongside people. I'm relational, and I hear Jesus the most when I go serve. So I just dug in, stopped responding to texts and phone calls, and just started signing up kids. One of these bad little boys that I see every single year, right? He hits me. He throws stuff at me. Like every time, he's bad. But he's a good kid. But and that's our relationship.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what this is.
He comes up. He says, "I've been waiting for you." I said, "Oh, what we doing today?" I got my cell phone, so I tell the dad, like, "Hey, it's not water. I got my cell phone on me and stuff, right?" He's like, "No, just wait." He comes running back, and he shows me his report card. He's straight A's. He's honor roll, right? And that literally snapped me out of my little, like, funk or whatever it is, right? And I was like, what the heck? But that didn't get me. He's like, we did it. I was like, no, okay, you did it. Like, he's like, no, we did it. And he said, Johnell, I don't care about the shoes. You can pick them. I just want to show you that we can do it.
Oh,
That's so cool.
You make a difference in people's lives, and I think that's what everybody needs to know. You can go from being woke up having dreams, not telling your wife, sharing it with me, and in my head I'm like, yeah. I told you, it's bigger than you, John.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that. But then you go to seeing a life transformed that if you weren't willing to get involved, you weren't willing to get out there, you weren't even willing, there again, so many people, and I think our first guest, James Burton, said it. If you go to a graveyard, you're going to see a lot of unfulfilled dreams out there. You weren't afraid to chase that dream.
No.
And not only did it just not become shoes, it became changing kids' perspective, their life direction, the trajectory of their life. So many people are out there right now with so many ideas. You can't look at I look at myself sometimes, and I'm not capable of doing a lot of things. I can tell people I can exercise and get big, or I can get hard. But outside of that, I don't have a lot of innate abilities. You struggle through them, but you do it. And you have an experience like that will transform your life. Like you said, you're in a funk.
Yeah.
But not after you hear a story like that.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah, it snaps you out.
I remember you told me about the mentor phase. And I told you, I go, hey, well, I'm going to pitch in there. My wife and my future son-in-law, Danny Jimenez, jumped in and said, we'll be tutors.
Those are amazing people.
But I'm just saying, you don't have to carry the load. And I think that's what you're proving out. And that's why I only spent a year with you, right?
Yeah.
There again, there's sometimes, as I told John, I'm with you for a year, but after that you need to pour into somebody, and you found just And you guys have been like,
like brothers.
Yeah.
We've been partners ever since in every aspect. He helps me in junior high and young adults, and I'm with him in Kicks for Kids, and we just do ministry together, man. It's been a ride.
Yeah.
It's been wild.
Johnell, what would you want to leave our listeners with? We saw a broken kid that had parents that passed away, and then probably went through some of the worst things that a child can experience. And then you get to a point where you get a pastor who prophesied kind of without 3 other guys that you're going to see this guy. And you're going to do it. I mean, and now you're at this point. What would you tell our audience out there, somebody that may be in your spot, like you were that day that Al and the guys knocked on your door?
Don't overthink it.
Oh, that's good.
Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it.
That's good.
Keep it simple. I think why it's so hard for people to even see God stories is that they're looking for the big bang, and then when they get the big bang, they so cynical, they debunk it. Yeah. Right? It's just don't overthink it. Keep it simple.
What is your life motto now, or your life philosophy? How has it changed? Well, it sounds like it's changed dramatically, but what would you say that your life motto is that keeps you driving forward?
Keep it driving forward.
Is like a verse or a...
Jeremiah 29:11-12, right? Paraphrasing it, that they were exiled, going through hardships, underneath oppression, right? We all can identify that, but to really, through all that, to be able to hear God say, if you pray to me, I will listen. That I have a plan that isn't this, but like if you pray, listen, I can get you out of this, prosper, good, not for evil, right? And that's not saying, like, these people were going through the worst, but there was a promise. To remember the promises. Even I've seen God enough to, even when I don't see Him in everything, I can't deny that He isn't there. Like, just stay focused.
Stay focused.
Remember the small promises.
Isn't that crazy? Because those small ones are important too.
They're like the biggest.
Everybody wants that big bang. Like you said, everybody wants that mountaintop experience. But sometimes to get to the mountaintops, I always tell people, when you're on one mountaintop, you got to go to the valley to get to the other mountaintop. Sometimes those valleys are very important.
Mountaintops can't teach you what you can learn in the valleys.
Ooh,
I learned that.
I love that. I love that. You have so much wisdom. Johnell, how do people get involved?
Yes.
How do people contact you?
Social media. You can DM me, inbox me, or Justin.
Yep, kicksforkid.org will be Kicks for Kids.
And that is correct. Kicks for Kid. We were late to the domain and stuff, so it's one app.
Someone beat us, but now it's going to be JCW Kicks for Kids.
Yes, that is coming up. You can reach out through that, but right now, social media is the best.
Yep.
The best. If you want to be mentored or anything, or become a mentor is what we're really.
Or if they want to get in with when you do your seasonal giveaways.
The seasonal giveaways, we have a monthly, basically barbecue with all the people.
We call it like a family reunion.
It's like a family hangout every month. So you can just come out and after contacting us first, of course, but you can come out and see the program at work, and it'll change your life. It really will.
Well, I can't imagine anybody not wanting to be involved. That's why when I heard about it, and I loved having these success stories come to fruition. Because and I think I shared this with you. Because, as you and I talked about you coming out of the program, I go, God chooses to use people. And I've always said this before. I think that's a weak program. I told that God, I go, when I felt God told me, I'm choosing to use you, Tom, because you have areas of influence. I go, then that's a weak plan, God. Because I know where I've been, and I think God, like you, God said, I forgave you for all that, Tom. And as you move forward, you have to believe in that God has a purpose and He chooses to use people. So He can use you right where you've been. I never wanted to be used in areas that I felt comfortable in. I never did, and God started using me back in the bodybuilding world, in the meathead gym world. He did, but I'm like, God, I can just move on. I'll just go be with the good church people. I thought that in my head sometimes. And I did a Bible study. I've shared that on the show where no one showed up. The only people who showed up were the Meathead Gym guys. I was like, I don't want to be around you guys. I'm just saying that facetiously, but we're just having fun.
Yeah.
So,
But it brings me back. The lesson I learned this week, you guys, if you can magnify your past or where you're at, or you can magnify God, and you have to choose to magnify God in every moment. And that lesson I learned this week will stick with me forever. It's crazy. Like, I'm not going to magnify my history or my trial. I'm going to magnify God.
But I think there's three of us that can also say, Paul said that when you grab the plow, you can't look backwards. Your past is forgiven, and you got to let go of it because God has a future for you.
Better future.
Johnell, man, love having you around. There you go.
Yep.
So next week we have Russell Johnson. Russell's been a lot of things. He's been Mike Maggart's chief of staff. He's a politician in town. He's also been the president of the Planning Commission. Russell's really popular with a foster care.
Victory.
Victory,
yes.
yeah. You work with Russell.
Yeah.
He came to your event. So Russell will be with us next week. We want to thank Encourage Media Production for putting this on. Our executive director, Vince Sierra, our on-site producer, Mike Harvey, and our executive producer, Seth. And there again, Tessa and Taylor Touchstone.
T squared.
God bless.
God bless you guys. This was Lunch Break. We'll see you next week.